when you're fighting through that process of knowing that these guys are playing at the highest level, doing their thing at the highest level, and you are sitting there in judgment, how was the process for you as far as like feeling comfortable with putting out a judgment, knowing you essentially haven't done what they did?
You know, it was easy for me in this regard. I remember when I started out in the business, and I had a clerical position at the Winston-Salem Journal newspaper in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, because I went to Winston-Salem State University, which is an historically black college and university. And I went there, and the sports editor, my first week on the job, sent me to Wake Forest University right down the road. Wake Forest was the number 3 ranked team in the nation in soccer. The only soccer match I had ever watched was Pele in the 1980 Olympics for the, I guess, right? And so what happened is that I knew nothing about soccer, and I went to the coach who's now deceased, God rest his soul. His name was Walt Chisowich. And I walked up to him and I say, I know absolutely nothing about soccer. I've never covered it on anything, sir. But the boss sent me over here to do a feature on you guys, and I don't know what I'm doing. But I really want to be a sports writer. Could you help me? And he summoned the entire team over. And he said, for the next 3 days, because my piece was due in a week, he said, for the next 3 days, you guys are to give complete, unadulterated access to Stephen. Any question he asked, you answer. And he said, you, Stephen, meanwhile, every single practice of every day this week, you will be standing right next to me. And he taught me the game of soccer. And then when I finished the piece, which ultimately had the sports editor call me into his office the next day and say, congratulations, you're the new beat writer for Wake Forest Soccer. When I went to the coach after that and let him know, he said to me, what do you think you've learned? What do you think you should have learned? I said, listen and learn. He said, you didn't play soccer, but you learn from those who do. And as long as you do that, then you're in a position to critique any of us, because the knowledge that you're getting is not of your own. It's one that was provided to you. And as long as you make sure you articulate that, you will be respected, because they know the lens that you're looking through is not that of your own. It's of ours. And I carried that with me for the rest of my career.
How was it when you started to get those close personal relationships with athletes? Like, you're obviously covering, and now you're obviously a superstar now and everybody knows you. But as you're growing and then getting those closer relationships with guys, and then having to go on TV and talk about, stuff that as an athlete, is like personal to you, how did you start to balance that as you're getting those friendships?
The parts about your performance never faze me, because you perform in a public platform. So the games themselves speak for themselves. You shoot 2 for 20, it's on you. You throw 3 interceptions, that's on you. You fumble 3 times or whatever, you get burned and you're a cornerback and somebody catches to over 200 yards on you, okay? That's on you. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing I can do for you. And that is what it is, and I don't give a damn about how you feel, because that was in a public setting and you put yourself on Front Street, and that's what you have to deal with. It's the behind-the-scenes stuff subject to interpretation and perspective, or the personal stuff that I'm very, very guarded about. Because what happens is that if I have a relationship with you, the assumption is that there's a trust. How do you become friends with people? Do you become friends with people you have no trust for? You don't believe in at all? You think every word out of their mouth is a damn lie? No, that's not what you do. Usually you cultivate these relationships, and there's an affinity for one another and a level of trust that's built. So when somebody comes with a different perspective than the person you have a relationship with, and it's in opposition to what they're saying to you, it can get tricky. And at that particular moment in time, you have to remind that friend, that person who's become a friend that you've cultivated a close relationship with, look, I've got an obligation to be fair. Even if I know or I believe you and I think they may not be telling the truth, they're saying this for the record. Now, off the record, I ain't going to do that to you. But if they say to you on the record, you know what, he ain't shit. He's a liar. This is what he did and blah, blah, blah. It's not like I can make up a quote. I got to quote him. That's what he said. I got to give it to him, okay? And give you an opportunity to respond. So it can get challenging in that regard, but that really calls for you to remind somebody of your professionalism, your ethics, the responsibility that comes along with the job title that you have. And it also serves as a reminder to that person that trusts you. Why did you trust me to begin with? Because I exercised those same principles in cultivating the relationship I did with you. I can't go against it just because you're my man. I can't do that. And I've had those situations in my career before, confronted by those kind of things, whether it be Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan himself. The list goes on and on. You certainly have had those things where people have given their different perspectives aside that would be different from something that they said to me or whatever. And that's the challenge that you have to deal with. But when you're known as being straight up and up, what you learn to find from professional athletes that they appreciate most is not being blindsided. They see you coming. You know, they ain't open the paper or turn on the TV the next day and are utterly shocked by what you're doing. And I think the greatest example of that was Isaiah Thomas when he was the head coach of the New York Knicks. They looked horrible. And there was a game in which they lost by 45 to Boston in Boston. And it was the most emotional that I had ever been in my career because I actually called him up and I almost started crying because he's the person that granted me my first ever interview as a reporter. And I had to call him to let him know tomorrow I'm calling for you to be fired.
Oh, damn.
Because it was that bad. It was that bad. And I knew that he had a lot going on a personal level. His mom was dying and, you know, he wasn't all there with the New York Knicks at that particular. There's so much stuff that was going on in his personal life that he had to deal with that it really didn't give the ideal example of what he was capable of doing as a coach. But the situation had regressed to such a point. Nobody worth their salt could support him staying on board. And I had to call him to let him know, this is what I'm doing tomorrow. And he said to me, do what you got to do, bro. I understand.
Is that a common thing for you
Right.
when you have a relationship with somebody and it goes downhill in a certain way where you give them a call and you let them know this is how I'm about to go about business?
I'm the kind of person, even if I don't have a relationship with you, if I know you and I know I can get in touch, if I know you well enough that I can get in touch with you and I have something to say about you, I'm going to call you. I'm that guy. I'm not that guy that's on TV but never in line. When you don't see me in the locker room and stuff anymore, blame ESPN. You got me doing every damn show. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm on the air for hours, you know. I got to travel to this city, that city.
Yeah.
I can only do but so much. But everybody that knows me knows I've always had that reputation. I will show up to the games. I will show up to the locker rooms. There are times when people would see me lurking on a basketball court and they'd be like, who does he think he is? Like he's walking around the court before the games when guys are on the layup line. They didn't realize the reason I did that is because I knew I had a national television platform. And I knew that I didn't have to be that beat writer with a bunch of reporters surrounding your locker after a game or something like that. But you might want to holler at me. So I wanted to be in their vicinity. So if they wanted to speak to me, they could either come over and speak to me or come over and say, look, call me later or plan on meeting me at this spot later or whatever so we can talk. It was my way of giving them that kind of access to me in case they wanted to reach me.
In those situations, like when you're close with guys, has there been a relationship of yours that has been burned because of
Allen Iverson and I didn't talk for 8 months. And this is when I was the beat writer. Like, for those that don't understand, when you're the beat writer, wherever the team goes, you go. Every single day, every single practice, you got to cover the team. I was covering the Philadelphia 76ers, and Allen Iverson and I went 8 months without talking. And the only time we talked was a couple of times where he was like, fuck you, and I was like, fuck you too. Like, literally, it was like that.
You said it back to him?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right, I did. You know, because that's how I felt at the time, because I felt he was wrong. You know, but ultimately, a friend of his that ultimately was killed years later, believe it or not, literally got us together. And how did we get together? He had me meet him at the club at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I met him at the nightclub, and Allen Iverson was looking at me like I was crazy because I showed up by myself. I said, I'm here. I said, I'm here by myself. I said, because I can be, but more importantly, I'm right. I did not do anything wrong. You did. You know?
Yeah.
And we had a discussion, and we were fine.
What was he claiming that you did wrong?
Well, he was writing some article that I had written. He felt that I should not have written it because I didn't have all the facts and I didn't get his side. And I was like, you mean after trying to reach you for 3 days? You mean after trying to talk to you? You mean coming to Fridays, coming to the club, you know, hollering at your friends and all of
right.
that? I'm like, you knew I was looking for you. I said, your inaccessibility doesn't get to determine my productivity. I'm going to do my job. I reached out. I tried to find you. You weren't available. If you were available, I would have told you everything. You would have given me your perspective, and it might have altered my content. You weren't available, and you thought being inaccessible was going to prevent me from doing my job. Well, it didn't. Lesson learned. Make sure when I'm trying to reach you, I reach you, because I'm not, how can I put this? Fellas, I mean, I got a good life now, you make a little paper and, life is cool, It's all right, But I was never one of those nerdish dudes that needed my career to have a life. I always had a life. Excuse my language, I always have shit to do, okay? For my own individual pleasures, okay?
Yeah.
And I got better things to do with my time than chase your ass around for a story. So if I'm looking for you and I'm looking for you and I'm looking for you, at some point in time, you better hope I find you if you want to have some influence over the kind of things that I'm going to say. And if you avoid me for too long, that's at your own peril. Now, it's changed now because now I'm on national television. And we live in the age of streaming in the digital stratosphere. So, if you're in the morning and you're getting 250, 300,000 viewers, that's considered good. Well, I'm doubling up on that. We've been number one for 12 years. We're the flagship show for the network, the worldwide leader. We're number one every day. And so I don't have to worry about people watching us now. And then on top of it all, in the digital stratosphere, me, myself, and I, by myself, generate over 2 billion views annually. You're going to see me. You're going to hear me. Do you want to have some influence over what I say or not? If you talk to me, I have no problem. I have an obligation ethically to listen to what you have to say and to make sure, even if I disagree with you, that the context that you are providing is accurately displayed. If you don't talk to me, that's your damn problem. I owe you nothing. Mm-hmm. I owe you absolutely, positively nothing. All I have to say is whatever I want to say. I tried to reach him for comment. He was unavailable.